If you're new to my channel, what I want you to do right now is subscribe to my channel and to also book with me a one-on-one intuitive mentorship reading and a business psychic reading or generic psychic reading, whatever you need. Basically, I run Empowered Intuition Psychic Services, and most of the content that I produce is oriented towards women using their intuition, developing themselves with their inner work, business development, business in general, and all of the things, related to how women can harness their reality. If you're brown or just a woman of color, I have some news for you. When you enter into the business world, when you try to do any sort of business, take some notes. You would have to do a lot more than the average person. Now, is it rewarding and freeing? Definitely. But you also have to understand you are competing with your white counterparts, so it's not the same. As someone who's been running a few businesses for 2 years, I can tell you a lot about being a brown woman in business. And the biggest lesson you have to learn, always charge premium. It's not just about the money. It's about your mental effort, energy, and the time, blood, sweat, tears, everything that you have invested. And the truth is, the world does not value that in the house, and they also don't value it out of the house when you're doing business. The truth also is that people would rather respect your white counterparts and their time, their effort, especially if it's a white male, much more easily than you would. And so they know where to allocate their time, effort, and energy because the world treats them differently. So now let me break it down about how it is to be a smart girl in business. Let's talk about the state of being a woman of color, brown woman in business to begin with. First, if you come across shitty incidences, if you don't vet your potential clients, if you don't vet what your structure of business should be, how much you are charging, you are going to end up in a lot of deep shit. Now, it's not just generic advice about how to do business, although you can apply it, but it's more centered towards, do you know your worth? Because business will test your worth. And it's not that exhausting after a while, but you're going to find a lot of people who would test that worth consistently. Now, I recently shut down one of my other businesses, and that was in the education side. And I noticed how people treat brown people in this field. Another issue is a lot of people have a lot of inherent racism and bias, which they do not do the inner work for. And that is because we live in capitalism, white supremacy, and the patriarchy. These are three systems of oppression that people live in. And so what ends up happening is people just operate from this on a subconscious level. And in terms of that, you are always going to have to prove double of what your white counterparts do. You have to know your worth all the time because this will be tested, and anything that you do will not be enough, and people will also try to scam you by not paying you enough. I always had this really tricky situation that I was always over delivering and people pleasing in ways that were very subtle, and I could just not make out as to where I was people pleasing because it was so indirect. It was so difficult and discreet because you were giving, but you weren't really understanding how much you were giving. Was that equated to the value of money that was being placed in the packages people were buying? Do your clients truly respect you? And after a while, I got ghosted by clients very fast. I was disrespected. I was told I was equal to a cleaning lady, like, for just coming into their house and providing the services that I was providing. And there were many incidences like this which taught me one thing: do not be shy to charge premium. If that means that 1 hour is $250 for what you're doing, so be it. Because when you are a woman of color, you have to show that the world has to treat you premium. They would rather put people with Eurocentric standards and things that obviously, if you're complexioned, you just cannot have, to a much more easier, lenient standard. They would get much more respect. Why? Because the world is inherently anti-black first, and second, adhering to white supremacy standards. So always charge the highest amount per hour. When you charge premium, and let's say that you are hypothetically, of a South Asian background, or another background that's very similar, it doesn't matter. And people look at you and they ask, like, are you of, let's say, the Ivy League standard? Are you, of a standard that's like really high, but they're not willing to pay it for it, especially. That just tells you how you have to read your clients. So if you are charging premium, you have to vet your clients extremely well. You have to deliver sales. Yeah, like sales pitch, sales, everything. Everything has to be catering to them. So the sales aspect and the business aspect both combine one particular thing, which is the ability to read patterns and behavior and read between the lines. If you don't do this, if you don't vet people, if you don't have higher standards, and this, honestly, all of this is attributed the same way when you're in the dating game. Like, there is nothing that's different. It's both very parallel to each other. Do you know how to mentally uplift yourself? Do you know how to have self-esteem? And do you know how to vet and read people well? AKA, do you use your intuition? Because as a woman, that's like the most important thing on the planet. So this is the consequences of being a smart girl in business. I've consistently had to do a lot of mirror affirmations for, and a lot of inner work for being enough, being heard, being seen, being respected, because there are plenty of downsides to being a woman of color in business, or honestly corporate too. And one of the biggest downsides is that you will face every single aspect that is dark and dirty about humanity. You will face how things are constructed against you, especially if you're in the West, but it's also applicable worldwide. And you will also be tested as a woman on multiple levels. People will push your boundaries. People will push your buttons. People will test you. They would kind of like read between the lines, read how you are, and start being emotionally violent. It is very often the case if you are a woman of color. So, what do I give in terms of advice or insight? Start practicing your worth in the mirror, doing I am worthy, I am respected, I am confident. These are three very simple things you can do when you are consistently trying to build a business. Even showing up online on social media, you have to have firm faith in your boundaries, your worth, and it's also parallel to your self esteem in dating. It is the exact same thing.